Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome everyone into the Computer America Show. We are in the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated, throwing that up there on the screen. Everyone, hey, welcome onto the program. Things are going well over here, and I hope things are going well over there wherever you are. Everyone, welcome into the program. We hope that you are having a great Friday and you are ready for today's program, because today on the show, not just technical difficulties, but we will also have Ralph Bond. He'll be joining us here in just a moment to talk all about, well, science and tech trends. And if you don't know exactly what that means, neither do I, going into these shows. He brings us a ton of different stories, many, many different topics, and all of them are things that, well, most likely, unless you have some very interesting hobbies, you haven't heard of, and you definitely want to. So with that being said, computeramerica.com, that's where you'll find everything, including past shows, future shows, show notes, articles, anything that we do here at Computer America, you can find in that one place. So you can also find the show notes, and we'll talk a bit more about those, but suffice to say, anything that we talk about here on today's show, you can go to the website, find the show notes, and links, sources, verification, all of it right there. So with that being said, let's go ahead, bring Ralph on, and just have a fun Friday with it. And once again, he is our science and tech trends correspondent. Ralph Bond, welcome back onto the program. How have you been?
I'm doing okay. Post the tooth extraction, I'm doing all right, and I'm off the pain drugs, so I think maybe there's a chance I'll be slightly lucid.
Yeah, the show might have been more fun with 800 milligrams of ibuprofen, but we'll do it with coffee. We'll do it with coffee.
There it is. Yeah.
So, Ralph, for all the new listeners out there who maybe tuning in for the first time,
yes,
and I purposely kept things a little vague, why don't you tell the folks what we try to do here?
You bet. So every Friday, what Ben and I do, and first of all, by the way, if you're brand new with our show, welcome. I think you're going to enjoy it, especially if you're a geek like us. So what Ben and I do every Friday is we look at 4 articles that show us key trends and developments in all things science and tech, including, of course, artificial intelligence, robotics, medical technology, sustainable energy technology, transportation advances, agricultural technology, construction technology, space research, physics, on and on and on. But here's the key, especially in the news week we've all been living in the mainstream press, is just horrifying every single day, most of the time. But most important of all with us on Friday, we're going to give you hope for a better future, thanks to amazing breakthroughs happening every single day in the world of science and technology.
Absolutely. And I think we're going to start with a pretty heady story number 1. And ladies and gentlemen, once again, if you would like to follow along, by the time that you hear this, the show notes will be up on the website, so you can follow along. These are going to, all these articles are always going to have more to dig into if you are so inclined. But of course, we'll have them up on the video portion. Appreciate you watching there. And but Ralph does an amazing job of kind of getting through these and navigating these. So Ralph, let's start with story number 1.
Yes, story number 1. And again, about the show notes, you'll notice in the show notes, text that's highlighted in blue color are things I've added to the article, mainly to help me understand what's going on, because a lot of times these articles bring up topics that they expect the reader to fully understand. So that's a key thing about the show notes I want to highlight. Our first story, though, here's a geek alert warning. This is geeky stuff. Decided to do it as the first story so that we won't put you to sleep at the very beginning of the show. So this comes from techspot.com and other resources as well. Headline: researchers build a switch 1,000 times faster than today's AI chips, and it barely generates any heat. And this is the University of Tokyo's antiferromagnetic Spintronic switch, operates at picosecond speeds. if your brain isn't melting already, it will soon.
Yeah. And before we even kind of jump into this, Ralph, I know that, mitigating, managing, not just electricity usage and water usage, that's very important for data centers. Ralph, I was just thinking like the other day, I was kind of hearing, on our show and on other, in other platforms that like mitigating the heat and managing data center kind of heat and things like that. It was always like, yeah, this is something that, they're working on. Here's this solution. It's something that we need to consider, Ralph. But like, I think with the news that we, offhandedly mention every week, of a data center going up, there's like a 40,000 acre data center that got half recently. Ralph, like it seems to have taken on such a huge importance to get these data centers to be more, sustainable. And I don't know, it just kind of felt like, it was a problem that researchers were working on. And now it's like, this is everyone's problem that we are having to deal with these data centers. So just a complete aside.
Oh, yeah, no. And that if you want to get into controversy and so forth with data centers, go to the state of Utah. There's a proposed, or maybe it's already in the works, massive data center that I think will use something like the entire state's equivalent of electricity. And so the people in Utah are freaking out. But so this story does have to do, as Ben was setting the stage, does have to do with a technology breakthrough that could have an impact not only in improving the speed of artificial intelligence systems, but also reducing heat. So let's get back into this. Researchers at the University of Tokyo have created a new type of electronic switch that could dramatically improve future computers and AI hardware. Now, I'm going to caution here for a second. A lot of the stories we do are early research, kind of glimmering indications of a potential trend, not something that's going to get delivered next week. So keep that in mind as we go forward with the story. So according to the article, the switch operates up to 1,000 times faster than the switching technology used in today's AI chips while producing very little heat, that heat issue that Ben brought up. Now, usually in the side notes, which are in the blue text that I insert to help myself and to help you as well, I don't usually read through those, but I'm going to do that today with this story because we have to understand the context of why this breakthrough from the University of Tokyo is so important. So AI chips still use binary switches. Modern AI chips, such as graphic processing units like NVIDIA, are built from CMOS transistors, which are binary devices. A transistor, as we all know, I think, is either on, representing 1, or off, 0. That's good old binary, right? So at the lowest level, all AI computation is still binary. Even when AI models use floating point numbers, matrix multiplications, or quantized 8-bit or 4-bit values, those operations are implemented using billions of binary transistor switches. But AI chips use binary switching in a very different architecture, where CPUs use binary logic to run general-purpose instructions. AI accelerators use binary switching to perform such things as massively parallel multiply, accumulate operations, matrix math units, specialized data flow architectures that minimize memory movement. Oh, sure. Yeah. I know all about that.
You had me at the, zero is off, 1 is on, and then you hit me with the massively parallel multiply, accumulate operations. I was like, all right, I'm a little lost. But yeah.
Fasten your seatbelt because the brain is about to melt. The binary switches are the same, but the organization is optimized for linear algebra, not branching logic. For example, if then else is the most fundamental and classic example of branching logic in both computer science and everyday decision making. Well, I go through if then else all day long. So, okay, a little background there. I apologize. I know this is geeky, but stand by. It'll hopefully make a little more sense. The University of Tokyo breakthrough, uses a special magnetic material made from manganese and tin called an antiferromagnet. Now, unlike traditional silicon-based chips that rely on electric charge, this technology belongs to a field called spintronics, which also uses the magnetic spin of electrons to process information. Oh my gosh, Ben, spintronics. All right. Side note on spintronics. bear with me, folks. It's worth it, I hope. Spintronics is the study and use of an electron's intrinsic spin, along with its charge, to store, process, and transmit information. In contrast to traditional electronics, which rely only on electron charge, spintronics exploits spin up versus spin down states as an additional degree of freedom, enabling potentially faster, more efficient, and lower power devices. Do I understand this? No. It's like superposition in quantum mechanics. It's like, okay, tell me that again, will you?
Yeah, the very basics of it, I'm sure I'm getting something wrong, but just being able to monitor spin, and like Ralph, it's always good to remember that even our kind of basic understanding of processors, we've gotten these to the point that we're, kind of worrying about, single atom thick, single, we're talking super microscopic for these processors that we're already using. So Ralph, it makes sense that, we're just getting even more, I guess, kind of detailed in our assessment of the electrons and the movement of electricity and the switches. This is just the future of technology. It's not just about, doubling the size of the chip. It's about getting even more microscopic with it. It's really
That's
impressive.
A fair point. And to your point about drilling deeper and deeper into the tiny, minuscule world of chips, the fact that we're talking about doing operations based on the spin up and spin up or spin down state of electrons. Holy smokers. Mm-hmm. Okay. So going on here in testing, the researchers sent an electrical pulse lasting only 40 picoseconds through a material to switch its magnetic state between binary positions. A pico or picosecond is 1/trillionth of a second, 1/trillionth. So 40 trillionths of a second was what it took to do the switching operation in this new technology, making this process incredibly fast. The switching created far less heat and used much less energy than current computing methods. So reducing heat, as we said at the beginning here, is important because modern processors consume huge amounts of power, especially in AI systems and data centers. Excessive heat also limits how fast the chips can run, and the researchers at the University of Tokyo believe this new design could help create faster, more energy-efficient smartphones, computers, and AI hardware in the future. This is early research. However, to wrap it up, the article notes that making one part of a computer 1,000 times faster does not automatically make the entire computer 1,000 times faster, since overall performance depends on many hardware and software components working together. But an interesting breakthrough, maybe several years from now, maybe 5 years from now or something, this might make it into the world of our everyday computing. But an interesting development. Again, to your point, Ben, well made at the beginning, all this effort globally, can we make this stuff consume less energy, produce less heat, reduce the need for water for cooling systems, on and on and on. That's what's driving this research all across the globe.
Yeah, I'll admit that, even here in America with our headlines, we're talking about Utah, we're talking, we talk about Oregon often. There are places in every state seems like they
all
have,
over.
Wherever there's cheap electricity, someone wants to put up a giant data center. I'll admit I'm very kind of America focused, but every country is probably dealing with these exact same things. They want to put up their own data centers as well.
Sure.
So this breakthroughs need to happen. They will happen. And Ralph, as is usually the case, this may not be the next home computer, but hey, if this research is the basis of another piece of research, which is the basis of more research, all the pieces will eventually fall together and create something really revolutionary. So a piece of the puzzle. So that's story number one. Really cool. I hope to see more of that. And good job to Tokyo for introducing me once again to antiferromagnetic spintronics. Always a good way to start the Friday. Ralph, story number two. This one is going to be a little bit easier to grasp.
Yes.
This one always seems like such a slam dunk. I love hearing updates about this.
Yes, this is a good example of an update, because actually this builds on something you and I reported last year. But let me explain. This comes from PV, which stands for Photovoltaics Magazine. Headline: Solar on canals reduces water evaporation by 70% and algae growth by 85%. Now they're talking about solar panels covering water irrigation canals. We'll explain this more. And in the show notes, folks, I can't stress enough, please come out and get the show notes from computeramerica.com because we got links. There's a wonderful video, a terrific tutorial video on this story. But let me get into this here. The 1.6 megawatt Project Nexus pilot, which you and I reported on last year, in California, has demonstrated the significant dual benefits of installing solar panels over irrigation canals. So you and I talked about the beginnings, as it were, of this project. Now what the project has just recently done is release data on the performance benefits that they've realized through this experiment of covering a certain section of a California water irrigation canal with solar panels. Okay, that's the setup here and what we're talking about. And by the way, California has more than 4,000 miles of irrigation canals. 4,000 miles. Wow. So
yeah, they're huge. Yeah. I know that when we think of California, we think Silicon Valley, and of course here on Computer America, we think about all the high tech stuff. But yeah, agriculture is kind of their thing. Oh
gosh, yes, huge, monstrously important. And water is a critical challenge and issue there as well. So conducted through a public-private partnership on canals operated by the Turlock Irrigation District, the project successfully tested the operational and technical feasibility of this innovative setup over a full irrigation season. So they set up these panels, solar panel canopy, if you want to call it, over a section of canal and tested it for a full irrigation season. And again, the news is, ta-da, folks, here's what we found out. And by the way, Turlock is in California's Central Valley. It's about 15 miles southeast of Modesto. That may not make any sense to someone who doesn't know California, but roughly sits halfway between Sacramento and Fresno. That's the area we're talking about.
Absolutely. And for anyone out there watching the video portion, always encourage you to do that. I'm going to show kind of an aside, and this is, kind of what I'm always interested in as well.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And Ralph, like, I got my problems with China. I'll admit it. But one thing that I'm always pretty envious of when it comes to China is the way that they kind of blend governments and corporations, in that when the government says, do this thing, the companies have to do that thing. And one of those things that they do is solar panels. So, Ralph, that's very cool. We're going to finish this article. We're going to, finish it in California.
Right.
But I also wanted to say that this idea is happening all over. And I think China is, really taking the lead on this. These are solar panels on one of their largest reservoirs. Where they are, it looks like little canals if you're watching the video portion, and you can see these floating solar panel installations. Ralph, let's see, this is an article from Wired, and you can kind of see the bigger picture there. Ralph, the idea has so much potential, and it's so cool to see it, not just on the scale in California, but on the scale in China as well.
That's a wonderful comparison. You're going to find out that they're benefiting in the ways this experiment in California benefits too as well. So the results from the experiment in California show a massive environmental and operational success. Shading from the solar panels, and this would be applicable to your China example as well. Shading from the solar panels reduced water evaporation beneath the arrays of solar panels by 50 to 70% water evaporation. Think about 4,000 miles of irrigation canals in California, all exposed to warm temperatures in certain times of the year and so forth, and all that evaporative water just going away, right? Cover them with solar panels, you could reduce this by 50 to 70%. Furthermore, by drastically blocking direct sunlight on the water, the panels cut aquatic weed and algae growth by 85%. Whoa, this massive drop in algae helped solve a major logistical issue for the canals, significantly lowering water treatment costs, pump cleaning, and overall canal maintenance. Oh, whoa. And beyond saving water and reducing upkeep, the project in California benefits solar efficiency thanks to the natural cooling effect provided by the water flowing underneath the solar panels. It produced between 2.5 and 5% more electricity compared to standard ground-mounted systems. Now, 2.5 and 5% may not sound like a lot, but when you look at what the energy output of a solar panel is, usually in the upper 20s, low 30s% of the energy collected is actually manifested in electricity. If you can bump that by 2.5 to 5%, that's significant.
No, that is a number that, Ralph, even if that were, I think, a little bit lower, all the other benefits would, you kind of start to balance that scale. Every one of these numbers that you're throwing out kind of adds one way or the other. To just throw that into this is also a positive, just further tips the scales that this is such a good idea.
It's a wonderful idea. So the project also served as a valuable test bed for different design configurations, including wide span structures. In the show notes, we have pictures, and the articles, of course, do this, and the video does a great job showing this. So looking at different design configurations, including wide span structures, narrower channel setups, and this is weird, iron flow battery storage. In the show notes, I'm not going to go through it right here on the show, but in the show notes, I have blue text about what the heck is an iron flow battery, because I went, what? So check that out if you're interested. The scalability of this design holds immense potential for water-stressed agricultural regions, such as California, and think about Colorado and other places too. A University of California study estimates that covering California's canals, remember there's 4,000 miles of them, covering those canals could save up to 63 billion gallons of water annually that otherwise just evaporates into the air. 63 billion gallons. This saved volume is enough to supply the residential water needs of over 2 million people or irrigate 50,000 acres of farmland, while all generating 13 gigawatts of clean electricity every year. So wonderful idea, and an update on a story that Ben and I first introduced you all to last year.
Mm-hmm. So, and I just looked up, some of the numbers. Admittedly, California. Ralph, would you like to take a stab in the dark at the amount of water California uses per day?
Oh, I can't imagine. It's got to be billions of gallons.
28 billion gallons of water a day. So this project would save about 2 days worth of water, which, may not seem like a lot at first, but at the same time, that's 2 days, that is a lot of water still. That's 2 days that you don't have to account for. And Ralph, I think besides that, you're looking at places that you can put solar panels that were otherwise kind of, unused space that was already being developed and, man messed with. This is it's more of like a why not? And other than the upfront cost, this seems like a no-brainer. It's a win-win-win-win-win. It really does seem like it.
It is. And I'll give you another great example you and I reported on some time ago, maybe it was last year, in Switzerland, where they're putting solar panels between railroad tracks. Mm-hmm.
The wind turbines between buses as well. Yeah.
In Turkey, in Istanbul, stuff like that is so genius. This is an area, a piece of land or a area of zone that's not being really used for anything. It doesn't hurt anybody. It doesn't impede on anybody. Put solar panels between railroad tracks. Put solar panels over a canal. How can you lose?
I can even think of at airports, and just to throw one more log on the fire before we move on to story number 3.
Right.
At airports, they had those little half walls that would sit behind when planes kind of rev up their engines and shoot the wind
turbines.
back.
Yes.
And then they were like the wind turbines that would collect that energy.
That's
Ralph,
genius.
It's going to take little things like that all over the place to really, secure the energy future that we want. So.
This is what we should spend our money on and our effort.
I think what you're saying is we need another. Whatever. I think what you're saying is we need another 700 million to coal. I feel like that's what you're saying. So
yeah, right.
You're in luck. You're in luck. So everyone, that story and more. Story number 2. Story number 3.
This is fun.
If you're a vegetarian, it's been really rough the past couple of years. I think there was a story we might have done on the show. Maybe I read it somewhere else. Maybe it was NPR or whatever it was, where it's like plants have feelings. They scream if you listen to the right frequency. They disperse chemicals through the soil to indicate like they're under pressure from pests or whatever. Ralph, plants are smarter every time that we look at them. And I think story number 3 is yet another one. So if you're like a vegetarian, it's like, I don't want to hurt anything. I just want to coexist.
Yeah.
Plants may be, plants may be onto you.
Yeah, that's something else here. In fact, we did a story, I think maybe a year or so ago, about researchers finding out that trees are emitting sounds.
Yeah.
We can't hear that frequency, but they're doing it. And why? What's that all about? Anyway, this story is a lot of fun. It comes from phys.org, which again is short for physics.org. Headline, Can Plants Hear? Latest research offers new insights. Now, qualifier. Right up front here. It's really not hearing as you and I would understand it, but it's still darned interesting, and check it out. It's a good story. So this article explores new research suggesting that plants may be able to detect sound vibrations in ways that kind of resemble hearing. Take that with a qualifier. The scientists at Massachusetts Institute of Technology studied rice seeds and found the sound of heavy rain increased seed germination by more than 30%. The researchers recorded the sound made by raindrops hitting shallow water similar to rice paddies. They discovered that stronger rain vibrations encouraged rice seeds to sprout faster, while lighter rain had little effect. Okay, the study suggests that plants may sense the vibrations through tiny starch-filled structures inside their cells called statoliths. These structures normally help plants detect gravity. That's weird. But researchers believe they may also react to sound waves by moving and triggering chemical signals. Now, in the show notes, I have a fairly lengthy side note about what are statoliths. You can check this out if you want. It's very interesting. The article also explains that this is not the first evidence of plants responding to sound, as Ben alluded to earlier. I can even remember back in the hippie days, a long time ago in the late 60s and 70s, where people were talking to their plants or playing music to their house, singing and so forth. Well, it's not as crazy as it sounded, at least in those days. So earlier studies, to this point, earlier studies showed some flowers react to buzzing of insects. Certain plants produce defensive chemicals when they hear caterpillars chewing nearby. It's actually sensing the vibrations. And some crops grow better when exposed to certain types of music or vibrations. Wonder what music my plants at home here would like. Anyway, scientists are still debating, and the key here, the scientists are still debating whether this should be called hearing, since plants do not have ears, brains, or a nervous system like animals. So that's the qualifier here. This is really about sensing vibrations and doing something in response. Wow.
Yeah.
So to wrap it up, guys, however, plants clearly respond to environmental vibrations in sophisticated ways. That's the key here to this research. Researchers say these discoveries are changing how we think about plants, showing they may be far more sensitive and complex than previously believed. Okay. Wow.
It's really, honestly, it's such a cool time to be in science. It's we're so far from really understanding everything. It's that we're getting more and more tools to really drill down and realize, oh, this system works this way, which, Ralph, I would even kind of point towards, story number 4 is traditionally medical news, but I'm going to bring up organoids and, some of the other research that we've talked on the show before, Ralph.
Yeah.
And, a lot of the research over the past couple of years that we've talked about here on the show, it's like we're still figuring out this system works this way, this hormone does this interacts with, this organ in this way. Ralph, it's like we're still just trying to figure out, oh, this is an entire system that we didn't even realize worked this way. And I feel like we're doing that with plants, we're doing that with energy, we're doing that for sure with computers and technology, and we're doing that with science. And it's such a cool time to be involved in the sciences, I feel like.
Gosh, yes. And that's one of the things I love about every Friday with you, Ben, is being able to share these amazing stories and, again, hopeful, uplifting stuff. And I think about this, thinking about this story we just did. What if you had gigantic speakers in a rice paddy broadcasting heavy rain sounds, like the stuff I listen to try to go to sleep every night? Maybe that would help speed up germination of plant. If you could figure out what would stimulate the growth of corn or other soybeans, that sort of thing, could you accelerate agricultural germination and so forth through sound? something to think about.
Yeah, and my brain immediately went to so that you're not essentially holding wood stock on every crop field out there. But Ralph, what if you had like I know it's a movie. Think like Dune with like the thumpers, for the sandworms. What if you had some kind of like implanted little device that would make that thumping sound, not for sandworms but for rain, and you could actually like put a vibration inducing thing in the ground, and that would cause the seeds to maybe germinate. Maybe that is a technology there.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's pretty darn interesting. I love this story.
For sure. It's very cool. And for everyone out there who grows houseplants, yes, your plants can hear you. Yes, you should sing to them and play them music. So there you go.
That's it.
Or hey, a podcast. May we recommend Computer America? So with that being said, story number 3, story number 4. Let's go ahead and talk about, medical news. And this one looks really cool.
Yeah, this is quite a nice story, and has been mentioned most of the time, folks. Story number 4 of the 4 set of stories we do every Friday is medical technology related, because that's a subject very near and dear to my heart. This one comes from bioengineering.com, a wonderful outlet, by the way. Headline: AI tool for radiotherapy advances global fight to eradicate cervical cancer. There's quite a lot going on in that headline, but check it out. So a groundbreaking international clinical trial called Archery, sort of like the bow and arrow archery, that's the same spelling, has shown that an artificial intelligence tool can successfully automate and accelerate life-saving radiotherapy planning for cancer patients. So this has to do with accelerating a process that when you are an oncologist or a physician, you're dealing with a patient to plan the radiotherapy process for the given patient. To date has been a very time-consuming process. This is talking about using AI to help super accelerate this process, which will help intervene and maybe save more lives. So I've kind of given away the gist of the story, but that's the key of what's going on here in this research. So led by researchers at the University College London and the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, the study evaluated a software called Radiotherapy Planning Assistant, which was developed by the University of Texas, MD Anderson Cancer Center. So, you know how, Ben, I love collaborations. Check this out. Here we have 2 institutions in the UK working with technology developed here in the United States and Texas. That's great example of collaboration. So traditionally, planning radiotherapy, as I alluded to at the beginning here, planning radiotherapy for a patient is a complex, resource-intensive process. Oncologists must manually map tumors and calculate precise radiation doses using CT scans, a task that normally takes days or even weeks. And when you're a cancer patient, days and weeks can be critical, right?
Yeah, and especially when you have 100% identified, hey, you have cancer, let's start treating it. Your results will be back in 3 weeks. We'll get started then. It's like, no, you need to speed that up.
Yeah, exactly. The new AI technology utilizes advanced machine learning and algorithms to autonomously identify target structures and determine optimal radiation configurations, drastically shortening this workflow to just over an hour. Wow.
That is, and really, to hear AI, once again, so many AI stories that are so scary and sad and bad in the news, but at the same time, Ralph, that is a revolution to go from weeks to hours.
It's just over an hour. I mean, it's just, this could save so many lives. Well, we'll get into that here as the story goes on. So this archery trial, this effort, evaluated over 1,000 patients from India, South Africa, Jordan, and Malaysia, and the results were highly encouraging. The AI-generated radiotherapy plans succeeded in international best practice standards in over 95% of cervical cancer cases, and 85% of prostate cancer cases, making them fully viable for routine clinical use. Now, time out for a second. A lot of our stories, as we said, are early research. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't, maybe it'll get out into the field, maybe it will, maybe it won't. They're saying here that the results of this testing with 1,000 patients, which is a decent body of research, makes them fully viable for routine clinical use. This could get into the field sooner than later.
Yeah, as always, with the medical field, AI is a wonderful tool to augment, assist, and then, of course, looked over by a human.
Right.
But still, it's another amazing tool that they can hopefully start using immediately.
Oh, yeah, and that's the key to this story. So this breakthrough has profound global health implications, particularly for low and middle income nations, where 94% of cervical cancer deaths occur. Holy smokes. Due to severe shortages of specialized healthcare professionals, only 10% to 40% of patients in these regions of the world currently have access to radiotherapy. By bridging this medical workforce gap and optimizing hospital resources, this validated AI tool offers a scalable solution to democratize high-quality cancer care and advance global efforts to eradicate cervical cancer and to help with prostate cancer and other cancers as well. This is a great, uplifting way to end the highlight of our 4 articles this week.
Absolutely. No, there are 4 amazing articles, all of them very, very positive. I'm glad that you found those. I'm sure a lot of people, myself included, have not heard these throughout the week. Once again, these are stories that are, not all of them are immediately applicable. Some of them are immediately applicable. Love the update of the Canal. Love that this story about cancer research is, moving forward immediately. Ralph, it's, technology plays an important role in so many of our lives, sometimes for bad, sometimes for good, but I think you really highlight the 4 good here on our segments. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you have been following along, you may notice that, we're only on page, 8 of 14. If you're following along, there's still 6 more pages. And what these pages have are, some other amazing stories. And Ralph is at least going to give you the headlines. If you'd like to come out to Computer America, find today's show notes. We have a section at the top just for Ralph, which I think I got working, but maybe. But anyway, you'll be able to find it there on the homepage as well. And ladies and gentlemen, you can, of course, find it there and find these honorable mentions if you want to dig it a little bit deeper. These are just like the other stories. They're just as good. They're not bad. They're not less. It's just we don't have time. We're trying to keep it condensed. So, Ralph, give them the headlines and they can come out to the show and find these themselves.
Yeah, so we do 4 key stories and then we do 4 honorable mentions. Think of it as like homework assignment for you. If you want to come out and get the show notes and pursue these stories, I encourage you to do that. So our first honorable mention, headline, Toyota Research Institute and Cornell University partner on AI projects, comes from Cornell's website. Really cool story. Basically, in a nutshell, this is an initiative that spans 31 universities and aims to advance artificial intelligence and robotics. So Toyota and Cornell taking the lead on something that involves 31 universities to research artificial intelligence and robotics. Pretty darn significant effort, I'd say. The next one's really fun from powermagazine.com. Headline, Starcatcher, that's the name of an outfit, raises $65 million to build first power grid in space. So these folks are hoping they might be able to pull off putting the first power source generation in space. We'll see.
Obviously, there's a lot of news around a certain IPO coming up, but Ralph, I have heard data centers in space, power grids in space. Ralph, I think space is something that people are going to, it's getting more and more important for people. So kind of cool if you're a space nerd.
Oh, yeah. And that's a great story. It's fun. And it's kind of interesting. It's a pretty bold thing to say that they think they're going to be the first to put an energy generation thing into orbit, but we'll see. Mm-hmm. The next one comes from newsbreak.com. Headline here is New Fireproof Battery Can Build Its Own Firewall the Moment Overheating Starts. Okay. Pretty darn cool. Check it out. It comes from China. Very interesting story. And our last honorable mention comes from my venerable go-to source, interestingengineering.com. Headline, Europe unveils reusable spaceplane targeting cargo and crew missions by 2030s. It's a cool looking thing. It reminds me of good old space shuttle. I mean, it's kind of a rebirth of the space shuttle idea that we had in our country for so many years. So check these stories out. Really good stuff.
Yep. Looking forward to, hey, a new kind of space race. And this is just, trying to develop space. So, hey, another trend to look out for. And Ralph, you have really highlighted a lot of trends here for us. So, ladies and gentlemen out there, I want to thank you so much for tuning in, for listening, and, just being a part of this. It's always fun to do. Always appreciate Ralph putting these show notes together, putting everything together. And, ladies and gentlemen, computeramerica.com. If you missed any part of it, check out the show notes. If you want to check out other segments, I promise, we talk about, last year we talked about that. This year we talked about this. Go back as far as you want. A lot of these stories are still as relevant then as they are today. So with that being said, Ralph, thank you so much for joining us. He joins us every Friday to talk about these stories. And everyone else out there, thank you for tuning into Computer America. We'll catch you next time. Have a great one. See you next time. Bye, everyone.